Hello everybody. Today I want to tell you about a transaction that I just closed in the city of Lake Forest. It is rather a complicated transaction, but thankfully we were able to close it, to sell the property. My client had been trying for approximately 1 year to sell her property, and she consulted 3 agents, but no one was really able to help her with the process. So the reason is that my client purchased her home in 2005 and she obtained 2 loans, one for 80% of the value and another one for 20% of the value. So when the housing market crashed in 2009, she defaulted on the second loan, and the bank didn't take any sort of action against her property because at the time the property values were not high enough for them to be able to obtain any sort of money from the sale of the home. So after many years, my client filed for bankruptcy, and she was under the impression that the second loan was released from the property, but that was not the case. So when she hired me to help her with the process, the first thing that I did was to take the bankruptcy documents and send them to an attorney. And the attorney looked over the documents and he informed me that the second loan was not released through the bankruptcy. My client was under the impression that that was the case, that the second loan had been discharged but not filed properly. But that was not the case. The second loan was still attached to the property. So the attorney told me that there was no way to get it off the property now based on property values and things like that. So my client had to make the decision of whether or not she wanted to sell the property and pay off that loan. The loan was for approximately $75,000. And the other issue that my client had was that no one was able to figure out who owned the loan or who was servicing the loan. But it only took me about 3 phone calls to find out who was servicing the loan, and they told me that they would be able to help me with the payoff. So they wouldn't give me an amount because I was trying to negotiate the loan down, but because we didn't have an active offer on the property, they told me that I needed to list the property, procure an offer, and then they would tell me how much money they would take. So my client told me that out of the $75,000 that she owed, she would be willing to pay half only. If she was required to pay more than half, she would not sell the property. So I listed the condo for $350,000, and it was in the market for a few days. The condo needed some work. It was not in perfect condition, and we received a couple of lower priced offers that we rejected. And one of the things that was very difficult for me was the fact that I'm saying this with my client's permission. Even though I told her not to engage with buyers or agents, she would always tell them way too much information, and one individual, one buyer, convinced her on the spot to lower the price by $10,000. So I was kind of upset, but she decided to accept that offer, and I have to respect her wishes because it is her property. So anyway, we opened the transaction, but I made the contract subject to her approval of the lien release amount, meaning that if the bank wanted the full $75,000, she was not obligated to sell the house. So we opened escrow and I sent the purchase agreement. The bank told me right away that they would be willing to take 80% of the balance, which was $60,000 of $75,000. When we worked the numbers, my client was approximately $20,000 short for the money that she needed to move forward with another transaction. So I informed the agent that my client was not comfortable or did not agree of the payoff amount, and we had to cancel the transaction. But right as I was canceling the transaction, we received a backup offer. So the original listing price was $350,000. We went into escrow for $340,000, and the backup offer that I received was for $355,000. And the way that offer was structured, the agent offered $335,000 and wanted to pay the second deed of trust $20,000 directly. So when I looked at the contract, I suggested that, first of all, that I told her that my client would only sell the property for $360,000. That would give her the amount of money that she needed to move somewhere else. And if she accepted the $360,000, she could just simply write an offer for $360,000 and pay a down payment amount based on the sales price and not offer to pay $20,000 out of pocket. And that would significantly reduce the amount of cash that she needed to bring in to close the transaction. So the other agent agreed, and by the way, the agent was buying the property for herself because she wanted to buy it for her parents. So we went through the transaction, we did the home inspection, and the heating unit was not working. I don't want to make the story too long, but I was able to negotiate. The buyers wanted my clients to fix the heating unit, but I was able to convince the agent that even if that heating unit was fixed, that it's not very efficient. So I saved my clients some money just by knowing the units very well and being able to explain to the buyer and the agent that it was not a very efficient unit. So anyway, also because there are so many people refinancing and buying properties, the banks are taking a long time. So we closed the transaction late, about 15 days or so, but I wanted to point that out because when someone is late to close escrow, there's not really much that one can do except to give them a notice to perform or to close escrow, and if they do not, you can just simply cancel the transaction. But it's a little bit more complicated because the loan was not approved right away because of the delays. So the buyers have to remove all the contingencies before their deposit is at risk. So what we negotiated was for the buyer to release some money up front for us to give them more time to get their loan approved. Everything worked out okay. We closed the transaction approximately 15 days late, which sounds like a long time, but honestly, the buyers were paying a premium for that property, and I thought that it was worth for my client to wait for them rather than to start the 30-day process with somebody else. The reason why I felt compelled to share this story with you is because over the last year I have seen several properties that had two loans when they first were purchased, and the sellers defaulted on the second loan. And people think that perhaps that loan has gone away, but the truth is that if the bank did not reconvey the loan, meaning that they sent some sort of document stating that the loan was paid in full, that loan is still attached to the property. So as property values rise, banks are foreclosing on properties based on that second loan. So if you know of anyone that may be in that situation, or if anyone that you know needs help with real estate overall, please give them my name and number. I would be honored to help them. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope that this video was, if not informational, at least entertaining. Have a wonderful day.